it yesterday. VP made a presentation also yesterday. So this morning we are bringing all the pieces together and relating how we are moving with LCDS 2030. So Vice President will make some opening remarks, and then you will have an opportunity to interact and to have any of your questions answered as well. So VP, good morning.
Good morning. So thank you very much. As I suggested yesterday, I think this format would be the best approach because we may be able to answer some of the questions that you may have in mind. So I'm going to use maybe about 10 minutes to talk a bit about the concept and then give you 10 minutes to raise some of the issues that you wish. The format that was there before was just me coming here and making a speech. Many of you would have heard that already. Many would have read the document, the Expanded Low Carbon Development Strategy. So this journey started a long time back, say in 2007. At that time, although we knew that forests were important as a climate change solution, as an abatement solution for climate change, it was not getting the global attention necessary to save and protect forests. So we thought in Guyana, and you know our forests are substantial. Our forests are bigger than England and Scotland combined. So many people sometimes don't understand that, and it's mainly primary forests. So we thought, what if we were to deploy our forests in the fight against climate change? Would there be enough global incentives to allow us to outcompete alternate use for the forest? Because these forests are a living part of a country. People look to forests, many parts of Africa and here in this part of the world, as a source of livelihood. Sometimes that doesn't come over in the international discussions. People, the so-called tree huggers, say, don't cut any tree. But I've visited Africa and I visited a single village. And they said to me, if we cut one tree for the month, then we can feed 30 families. Who is going to feed these families if we don't cut the trees? So clearly we had to find a balanced approach that would allow people to continue to have a decent livelihood using the forest, but at the same time preserve these forests, because if we don't, we'd never achieve net zero. Deforestation and land degradation contribute 16% of greenhouse gases. So we'd never meet the target, net zero. So the model building started, but in the UN Convention, and until today, forests were not giving the sort of attention necessary. So we decided, we got McKinsey and Company to come to Guyana. They did a study and we said, what if we were to cut 90% of our forests down and preserve only 10% with the highest biodiversity value? And the forest that we cut down, we deploy, we change the land use into mining, agriculture, etc. How much can we generate annually? What is the annuity that we can generate as a country from the alternate use of the forest? And we came up with an annuity, maybe at that time about $600 million per year. So we said, if the global community can produce that value to Guyana, then that can outcompete you, not just basing forests on preserving forests based on altruism or people doing good, but you're outcompeting the alternate use, and that's the only sustainable way to approach forests. And we started there. We ended up, I'm going to cut short because I'm going on too long, a bilateral program. So we said, how are we going to do this? First, we had, since there was no framework, could we have a bilateral partner to prove this concept, build this model? And we found Norway. We signed an agreement with Norway for $250 million. It was the largest per capita forest deal in the world. Of that arrangement, we got about $20 million disbursed to Guyana, and that was signed in 2009. Then we said the next phase would be to integrate into the voluntary global markets, and we've started doing that. And then the third phase would be the compliance market and the UN framework. Now, the recent agreement that we signed, so I'm jumping now to what happened in 2020. We resumed office, and for the past 2 years, we've been working with the Architecture for REDD+ transaction to certify our credit. They have issued certified credits to Guyana. We're the only jurisdictional scale country certification in the world. Our forest carbon is the highest quality forest carbon in the world because we've had 10 years of robust monitoring, reporting, verification systems in place. And that is why it has such a great value. And we managed to sell 30% of that to Hess for a minimum of $700 million, because if the prices move and it's traded further in secondary markets, we'd be able we'd share the upside. So that's why I said a minimum. So this is potentially a $2 billion deal. We have 70% of our credit. We have a number of people who are trying to buy those credits. We're a bit cautious now, but soon we'll enter the market further. Now the money, these credits are CORSIA certified. So CORSIA is a compliance market. And so we have moved from where we started working with a bilateral partner right into a compliance market. Globally, we are pushing the UN, the UNFCCC negotiations to create that room, because if we can have a compliance market there, the prices would escalate. We got really good prices at $15 per ton of carbon for the 2016-2020 period. It will be $20 for 2021 to 2025, and $25 per ton between 26 and 2030. So those are good prices compared to what is in the market, the voluntary markets now. But it has the potential to go to $80 and $90 per ton. So potentially this could become a $4 or $5 billion deal, depending on if it's traded upwards. Now the proceeds would be used to do some of the things that we have identified in our expanded LCDS. So the initial LCDS focused on mainly the forest, the new one on biodiversity, on integrated water management, on adaptation, the marine economy. And so the significant amount of funds required for adaptation, over maybe $2 billion in Guyana's case, just for flood control and water management. That's our biggest vulnerability. Some of the climate funds would be used for that purpose. Some will come from the oil and gas industry. We can't wait for climate funds or adaptation funds to come through the global mechanism. I think most countries in the region are waiting for that, and it would be a long wait, 100 years. We don't have time for that. So, and then we've decided that 15% of these proceeds would go directly to indigenous communities. As I leave here, I'm going this afternoon, I'm meeting with the leaders of 240 villages, and we're going to decide their allocation, the share of $22 million. We received the payment last year as soon as we signed, and this year we're going to receive $150 million. Their share is $22 million US. By next week, those communities will be in receipt of $22 million US. And so it's part of, I think I've spoken enough. I think I might be gone over the 10 minutes already. So in a nutshell, that's what it's about. We're situating our oil and gas industry in the low carbon development strategy. If you have a chance, see how we have done that. Because yes, as I pointed out yesterday, that even with 10 FPSOs, we will remain a carbon sink. Every year, we sequester 154, and it's conservatively estimated, 154 million tons of carbon from the atmosphere. That's more than maybe 4 or 5 European countries combined, their total emissions. And that's what our forest sequesters. So we're making our contribution to the global fight against climate change, but we are monetizing these resources, and we're utilizing these resources for the development of our country. So that's in a nutshell what it's about.
Thank you, Vice President. 8 to 10 minutes, capturing the journey since 2007. Not an easy feat, but thank you for giving us that nutshell version. And now it's an opportunity to hear from you pertaining to the remarks Vice President gave yesterday, just now.
Yeah.
Any clarification?
Can we
How
just
are we
get
going to do this? Yes.
quick questions? Because then I can take more of those.
So I suppose by a show of hands, it'll make it easier for us to be able to see you. So we're going to make a start from the very front, and then we're going to move our way down the room. So the microphone is going to come around.
And the locals, if the locals see me all the time, don't ask me questions here. You can come and ask me. Let's give our guests of the first preference. Because I see some people already who meet me almost every day, but trying to put up their hands. Don't. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's make a start.
I'll ask you a really quick, I know I'm local, but I'll ask you.
Sure.
You had talked in the past, Dr. Jagdeo, about not putting the revenue from the preservation fund in with the natural resource fund, that you may establish a separate fund. Anything more you can say about that?
Yes, and the natural resources fund are separate, would be audited separately. Those are for oil proceeds alone. And here we have a separate mechanism, because one of the things that we want to prove to the world is that these funds would not be squandered, they would not be stolen, that they can be deployed for development. So every bit of it has to be audited. So I have the two shows, the leaders of these communities today. Right now they're establishing separate bank accounts for their villages. So when it's paid in there, because they have multiple accounts. So if these funds are tracked through a separate account, we can have them audited. Similarly, at the government level, the funds would go through a separate audit and probably with some international verification to show that they are done. So the transparency in the use of the funds would be maintained, but we're not confusing this with oil and gas, the natural resources fund. That fund is separate.
We've got another question.
Yeah, sure.
David Pollard from Pollard Zetfield. Could you say a little bit about the renewable energy components of the expanded LCDS?
Okay.
Renewable energy.
Yes. So yesterday I went through that in a nutshell, and you're going to have some technical presentations. I think Mahendra Sharma at the technical level from the Guyana Energy Authority will speak extensively about renewable energy. But the aim is to cut emissions from the sector by 70% by 2030. And we will do that through a combination of projects. So the gas to energy project will significantly, most of our power now comes from burning bunker, which is a very dirty fuel. The gas to energy project will make a big difference in that regard. The hydropower, which we would retender, as I said yesterday. We're now starting to introduce solar farms at scale. We're out to tender for 35 megawatts. Before the end of the year, we'd have 30,000 units, over 30,000 units of solar systems coming in for each home in the hinterland. We're exploring some mini hydros for some of the smaller communities. So this is how we're going mainly on the renewable energy. We've just, this last budget, we've removed all the taxes from electric vehicles. Yesterday, Ashni, the Minister of Finance, is here. I met a gentleman, and he said he wanted to put in the charging stations, but the chargers still have the taxes. So we'd have to remove those too. So we removed them from the vehicles, but we didn't remove them from the chargers. So we have to do that too. So some of these things, this is what's happening in the renewable energy sector. I don't want to go in details because you would have another opportunity to question the guys at the technical level.
Great presentation, Mr. President. Any investment from Canada that you know about in this?
Yeah, there are lots of investments from everywhere in the world. As the President said, we have a diversified portfolio in the public sector and more so in the private sector. We have had business interests from every part of the world. And we're trying to steer people to look at the opportunities in other sectors. Because many people come here and they want to look at oil and gas, and they come here for oil and gas, the oil and gas sector. And they're only sometimes confined to services for that industry. But there are many other lucrative opportunities out there that we hope people will examine. The education, just providing education and health services. I may have indicated, we removed the corporate tax on education and healthcare. So if you're investing in those areas, you don't pay any taxes. And it's not a tax holiday. It's just a total removal of the corporate tax. And we did that in 2020. So if you build a hospital, you don't have to pay taxes, or a health clinic or something else. In every sector, there are a whole range. The hospitality industry, agriculture. Agriculture will get a ton of incentives because that's part of our plan to keep the economy diversified, to avoid the Dutch disease, the dreaded Dutch disease, and to utilize some of the oil and gas proceeds either for direct funding into some of the sectors, so co-investing like with some of the investors in the agricultural sector, or alternately removing some of the taxes they have to pay because we're getting more proceeds on the oil and gas side. So the incentive regimes in those sectors become very favorable. So I hope that many of you would start examining the numerous other opportunities that are available. And people from Canada, investors from Canada and everywhere else are doing that. I'm aware of it.
We've got another question.
Yes. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, well, we believe in this concept of free, prior, informed consent, which is critical. So I've seen we have a lot of naysayers too. You know of the people. They're very negative. We have one indigenous organization who is opposed to everything. They don't represent anyone. So we have a council of it's almost an NGO, where all the elected leaders come once a year to meet. And these are elected leaders from the villages. They agreed that with the LCDS, they issued a statement, there's a buy-in, they supported it. They're all here again. So once the villages have the funds, they will have to go through a process to create a village development plan. Now, if 4 of the villages in a sub-region decide to pool their money, like in the Maruka area, has several satellites or several satellite villages. If they all decide to pool their resources, they will have probably close to maybe 750,000 US dollars or $1 million, close to that. So then they can use it for a regional project in their sub-district, but that's entirely up to them. So they have to, at the village level, involving people, utilize these resources for their own development plans. And these are resources that go directly to indigenous villages. They will also benefit from government expenditure in these villages. So this is not excluding our spending. Government is spending on education, healthcare, and other activities in these villages. But it's up to answer your question, it's up to the villages to decide themselves how they want to utilize the resources or whether they work together in a sub-district. But these are mainly for indigenous people. I'm talking about those. Coastal people and others, they're part of the regular programming. The remaining 85%. And the indigenous people, because they're Guyanese too, they would also benefit from the other 85% of the resources. So it's not, but this is a direct funding to those villages. Recognizing the stewardship role they've played over forests and interior communities and maintenance of the ecosystems, hinterland ecosystems.
It's 9:40. Just wanted to say, interestingly enough, Vice President, our indigenous people across our land, they are listening, they are watching us as we have this conversation this morning. So we may think we are here in the hotel room, in the Marriott Hotel, but our people are hearing about their development, and they are going to also get involved. After all, we're talking about them.
Yeah, sure.
We have another 5 minutes or so with you, Vice President. So we're going to take another 2 questions.
So,
Are there
okay, well, we're here first and then we come
wrap
to you.
up over there.
Okay?
Are there agroforestry opportunities in Guyana, and if so, what is the government doing about it? For example, mined out areas in the bauxite industry and so forth.
So we had some proposals, a French group, several proposals actually from people who want to come do agroforestry and they want to share the carbon, the credits that will emerge. And so we had a very hard time. We started looking at the mined out areas. They wanted, we couldn't find more than 6,000 hectares of contiguous land that had been mined out. Because, you know, our forest cover is nearly 90%. So even in the mined out areas, and we have fast regrowth of the forest. So they're not large areas that we can find where we can promote agroforestry. There are a few, like I said to you, we had a hard time finding the 6,000 hectares of contiguous land. So you have pockets of deforestation, but contiguous land that would allow a viable agroforestry plantation, for example, for that to happen. Yeah, sorry.
Good morning. My name is Glennis Beaton. If I remember, 1 year ago, you promised the locals will see you. I didn't fall in that category up to now,
Okay.
1 year after. So I'll try to do it today. The LCD funds, the Amerindians will enjoy it, a percentage. One thing I like to ask is infrastructure in those village roads, because yes, they get the money, but you don't actually see what comes out of it. Secondly, am I going to be benefiting from just a little of that fund outside here? I'm very concerned about benefiting from that funds outside of the hinterland. Thank you.
Yes, so the roads, we don't expect the Amerindian communities to fund their roads from this fund. We hope that it could go more towards job creating activities for these villages. They live very far from the coast, and many of them don't benefit from a lot of the services that coastal people benefit from. They live in very remote areas, so we are hoping like job creating opportunities will be stimulated, etc. At the 85% of the resources would be spent across the country. So everyone will benefit. And as I said before, a lot of those resources will go to adaptation needs of the country. So take, for example, the Hope Canal, when it was built, because water management, the Guyana Human Rights Association was opposed to it. Imagine a human rights association, everyone, and opposed to the canal. Every year when the Conservancy was threatened, we had to release the water into the Mahaika River, which flooded all the rice-growing areas, Mahaika, Maikoni, Abari, right across Region 5. Millions, tens of millions of US dollars of losses. We didn't have a choice. To save Georgetown and the East Coast, we had to release the water there so the Conservancy Dam wouldn't break. We built that canal. It cost $16 million. Now, we don't have to worry about that. We're preserving the whole East Coast and the city, and we don't have to flood people there. That's the sort of infrastructure I'm talking about, adapting for climate change. So it benefits everyone. You might not go into people's pocket directly, but it benefits our people long term. We're preparing for climate change in the country. That is the sort of thinking that is there. But also, when we are out of office, we left about $4 million US for small-scale development and for grants and loans to be given from the last low-carbon development strategy, where we earned $220 million or so from Norway, actually, what was 250, but 220 disbursed. And those were given out to individuals as grants and loans. I'm going to publish the list soon, you will see it, and who got the money. And you'll be shocked to see. I don't want to bring our politics here, but you'll be shocked to see it. Who got the money? Right. Right. Anything else? Yes, this gentleman is trying to get us here.
Good morning. My name is Isaiah Thomas, and a question I had, is there any guidance or help towards the Amerindian people to help them with their job creation and growth of their economy as we give them these funds?
Can you go a little thing? I can't hear you. It's a bit muffled.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Pull the microphone a little.
Yes,
not that far
right,
down.
yes.
Okay. So my name is Isaiah Thomas. The question was, we are deploying these funds to Amerindian people. Will there be any guidance or any help in job creation and economic growth in those communities?
I didn't hear a word of it.
Okay,
And
I'll try to summarize.
Yes, go over
Right.
it, yes.
Guidance to the indigenous people who are going to be the recipients of the money in terms of
Oh,
executing
the
their
guidance.
projects.
Oh, whether we give guidance. So generally we speak about historically, when the government also separately through the Amerindian Development Fund, which is a budgetary process, finances, village development plans. So historically, what we have asked for is that they develop these plans along two lines. Food security for the villages, like right now the flooding has destroyed all of the crops in the areas like Rewa, Apoteri, etc. in Region 9. When they destroy the crops, people don't have food there, they're isolated. Those are low-lying lands where the villages are. So we said food security and job-creating activities, income-generating activities for the villages. So that's where we would like to see it go, but they now, under these funds, they can use it for social purposes too. So they will have to make that decision. The government would like to see them focus, the communities focus more on food security, income-generating activities mainly. But it's up to the villages how they utilize their funds, and that is the local democracy.
Hello? Yeah. Are you providing additional resources to them? Like, are they able to reach out and say, if I need help with guidance and how to create this? Maybe they might not be knowledgeable how to. Are you providing those resources to them in addition to the funds, or do they just have to come up with it on their own, is what I'm asking.
I got to get my ear tested on this side. Maybe it's this ear.
Can everybody else hear me?
I rarely get my...
Okay.
Right. Yes, so... What, somehow,
Yeah. I think, Vice President, the question focuses on whether the leadership of these communities are in a position to make these decisions and help themselves.
But they have to. These are smart people. These are smart people. So we can't be condescending when we deal with the indigenous people. We believe we can make decisions on our own at the coastal level. Why don't we think that they can make their own decisions on how to use the money? I think that is... They have to do it in consultation with their people. Of course, if they ask for guidance, the ministry should provide. If they need technical help, we can do so. We can give technical help. Like we've had a lot of great income generating ideas. If you grow cassava in the hinterland, you can't bring it to the coast and sell it, because by the time it gets to the coast, it's perishable. But if you do honey, like we started building hives, many of the forested communities can do an unlimited amount of honey, and which doesn't spoil. It's not perishable. You can store it for a long period, has high value, that sort of discussion. So we do provide technical input. The Ministry of Agriculture, for example, have a Black Giant program we're giving each community a number of chicks so that they can start producing their own eggs. Yesterday I was talking to them about the new breeding animals, the pigs that we're sending into the hinterland. We have extension officers for agriculture. So there is that sort of thing. But they must make their own decisions on how to utilize funds that are available to them.
So we've got, this is going to be the final question. It's almost 10 minutes to 10.
Excellent.
So
all right, there are two
questions. Yes, we'll facilitate.
we started a bit late, I think. What do you think, Tony, right?
2 questions.
I'm cutting into Vic's time. All right, these last two, we go quickly.
Okay.
Right, so let's just allow the one with the microphone.
The one with the microphone first, and then
you
Norman.
will wrap up.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. My name is William Carsten, Group Ocean Canada. We've heard about the development of the highway network, which is so important. Are you looking at a commensurate development of the river network, given that Guyana is so blessed with the Essequibo, Demerara? Are you looking at creating river channels to improve that logistical capability as well?
So when I said integrated water management strategy, so as part of the LCDS, so it's water, potable water, it's water for agriculture, it's water for navigational purposes, it's water for fisheries purposes, a whole range. That is the approach here. So integrated water management is not just about flood control water management, but it's water for all the purposes, including economic activities. So clearly that is important for us. How? Because we navigate our rivers, use them for transport, and a whole range of other things. And the maritime economy, the concept is, it includes the mangroves and the riverine communities, not the blue economy alone, traditional blue economy, where you look at the sea. It includes the body of water in our rivers and our lakes and other places. You're welcome. Yeah, Norman.
Yes, Chief. Bosai Minerals Group, they're producing a 25 megawatt solar facility at Linden. And I thought I would share that with you because it's going to be very significant, and they anticipate that that will be up and running by next year.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Secondly, the Hope Canal has been a very big success. There was also to be a third canal on the West Bank. I don't know whether we are looking into that because it's very important.
The West Bank?
Yes.
So we met with the farmers and the communities in region 2, 3, 5, and 6, these coastal areas, because we had completed the Hope Canal in 4. So right now we're doing dredging them out of the Pomeroon, which is a big problem there. And we're starting to impolder the lands and the Pomeroon that are very prone to flooding. In Region 3, we've already started the canal area. We've already put in some new sluices, massive sluices, and we're rehabilitating the network. That whole area before the mid-year or so, hopefully would reduce the flooding practically there, because we can handle larger volumes of water and transport them into the Atlantic faster. The same thing in Region 5, a series of Hope-like canals. They include also putting in no cokers. We may have to move and go to the steel or aluminum doors for our cokers because the wooden ones are rotting quickly now. We're looking at that. So it's a whole rethinking of the coastal zone management, mangroves, a combination of mangroves, managing water, maybe greater conservancy, storage areas. That's the integrated plan I'm talking about. So all across the country, we're busily engaged in that. Because we can't wait for the future. We have to address it now to the disasters to come. Thank you.
So thank you for your questions. VP, just before you go, to wrap up our first presentation, any closing remarks on the topic of LCDS? No doubt something that's very close to your heart, something that you're actively involved from the policy level. You mentioned already meeting with our 240 indigenous leaders later today, but any other closing thoughts as we wrap up our first panel?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thank you. Thank you so much. Cool. Careful. All right. I'll take this. Thank you.